box at the top of page 9, you will see the sum to product formulas. There are 4 of these as well. If you examine the expressions on the left side of the equal sign, each one of those is a sum or a difference because you're either adding or subtracting. On the right side of the equal sign, you have products, something times something. Okay, so this time we are converting a sum or a difference over to a product. Okay, so let me go ahead and read through these. Okay, so the first one in equation 10 tells us that the sign of A plus the sign of B is equal to 2 times the sign of A plus B over 2 times the cosine of A minus B over 2. And then the sign of A minus the sign of B is equal to 2 times the cosine of A plus B over 2 times the sine of A minus B over 2. And then we have the cosine of A plus the cosine of B is equal to 2 times the cosine of A plus B over 2 times the cosine of A minus B over 2. And lastly, the cosine of A minus the cosine of B is equal to negative 2 times the sine of A plus B over 2 times the sine of A minus B over 2. All right, so quickly I am going to discuss how these formulas come about. I am going to show you for equation number 10, and same thing like before with the product to sum identities, the remaining formulas can be derived in a similar fashion. Okay, so here we go. I am going to try to show you why the sign of A plus the sign of B is equal to 2 times the sine of A plus B over 2 times the cosine of A minus B over 2. Okay, so here we go. I am going to start with the right hand side. Okay, so I'm going to write that down. Okay, so we have that 2 times the sine of A plus B over 2 times the cosine of A minus B. Okay, so that's where I'm starting. Okay, I'm going to start with the right side and I'm going to try to get the left side of the equation. So if we look at this again, okay, I am starting with the right side. It is a product. It's something times something, okay? And I'm trying to get the other side, which is a sum. So I am going to take this right side because it's a product and I am going to convert it to a sum based on the product to sum identities. Okay, so I have a sine times a cosine. So we need to go back and dig up the appropriate product to sum identity. Okay, so if I go back to these guys, okay, I'm looking for the one that has sine times cosine. That's going to be this guy. Okay, so I'm going to use this to do my derivation. Okay, all right, so here we go. I'm going to write this identity in red. Okay, so we have learned already that the sine of A times the, let me get rid of the parentheses. The sine of A times the cosine of B is the same thing as 1/2 times the sine of A plus B plus the sine of A minus B. All right, I am going to do some adjusting to this red identity because we have A's and B's in our blue expression and I don't want to confuse the two. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the red identity here. It is generic. Okay, we don't have to have an A and a B. It could be other variables. So I'm going to change all the A's to X's. And then I'm going to change all the B's to Y's. Okay. So let me do that. All right, so now this is what this identity reads. Okay, so I need to compare the left side of the identity to what I have. Okay, so I see the sine and I see the cosine. Okay, I need to match up my arguments here. Okay, so x is going to be the quantity that I'm taking the sine of. So x is going to be a plus b over 2. And then y is what I'm taking the cosine of. So y is going to be a minus b over 2. Okay, so that's matching up with this part of my expression. But the other thing I have to adjust, I have to account for this 2 in front. Okay, so if I have a 2 here, I want 2 times the sine times the cosine. So I'm going to have to multiply the left side of the identity by 2. If I do it to the left, I have to do it to the right side of the identity. Okay, so now my expression is matching up exactly with the left side of the identity. I've got 2 times 2 times sine times cosine. Okay, all right, so according to the identity, okay, what is this going to equal? Okay, well, realize that the 1/2 times the 2 is going, those two guys are going to cancel, okay, because 1/2 times 2 is 1. Okay, so we are going to be left with, according to this identity, okay, this is going to be the sine of x plus y. Okay, so the sine of x is a plus b over 2, plus y is a minus b over 2. Okay, plus the sine of x, which is a plus b over 2, minus y, which is a plus b, or sorry, it's a minus b over 2. Okay, all right, so this is what we have at this point. Okay, so now we need to do some simplifying. Okay, all right, so this is going to give us the sine of, look at the argument, we're adding two fractions, so we need a common denominator. Luckily, we already have a common denominator. Both fractions are already over 2. Okay, so I'm going to combine them into one fraction so I can just add across the top. This is going to be a plus b plus a minus b. Okay, then I'm going to keep my plus sign in the middle. I'm going to go over to the other sign. Okay, we are subtracting fractions here. Okay, again, we need a common denominator. Both fractions are already over 2, so we can combine them into one fraction over 2. Okay, so we just subtract across the tops. The first numerator is a plus b. We are subtracting, here is that yellow negative sign. We're subtracting the entire numerator on the right. So we are subtracting the quantity a minus b. Be careful there. Okay, we're subtracting the quantity a minus b, so you need parentheses. Okay, all right, let's keep going. Okay, so this is going to be the sine. If you look in the numerator for over here, see where my cursor is, you have a plus b plus a minus b. So the b's cancel because I have a positive one and a negative one. I'm left with 2a in the numerator and a 2 in the denominator. Okay, so that will essentially simplify to be the sine of a. Okay, this plus sign, okay, I have my plus sign, it's in the middle. Okay, let me color code that so you can see where that has been and where it's going. Okay, now we move to the other sign. Okay, so in the numerator we have a plus b. You have to distribute the negative sign. This is going to be minus a plus b. Okay, everything is over 2. Okay, so what we're going to be left with is the sine of what? Okay, well, this is going to be, when I look at the numerator here, I have a minus a. Those guys will cancel out. I'm going to be left with b plus b. That's 2b. Denominator is 2. Okay, the 2's are going to cancel just like they did here. Okay, and so ultimately this is going to turn into the sine of A plus the sine of B, which is the left side of our identity in Formula 10. Okay, so by starting with the right-hand side of Formula 10, that is a product. Okay, we applied the product to sum rule that we already know. Okay, and we were able to work it down to achieve the left side of the equation in blue. Okay, so that is how this particular formula is derived. And like it says at the bottom, you can derive formulas 11, 12, and 13 in a similar fashion.